So after all of these years, it's finally revealed what AMAI Mask's secret is, and it's that he's just straight up a monster. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I know a lot of us assume that, but now we know for sure. And let me also point out that, yes, this was revealed 5 years ago in the webcomic, but before that, the community as a whole definitely wasn't all together on AMAI Mask being a monster. I know it's easy to look back and just think like, oh, it's obvious. Well, it doesn't always work that way at the time in anime communities with speculation, theories, and all that stuff. It's always after the fact that everybody becomes Captain Hindsight. But yeah, AMAI Mask has been suspicious since the very beginning of the series. I think the first suspicious thing we might see him do is when he's arguing with Metalbat at the end of Season 1 and his eyes suddenly start getting veiny and red. I guess that was one telling us like, oh hey, look at this guy, there's something beneath the surface with him. Then also, you know, in Season 2 we saw when he took care of those two monsters at his concert performance, he did the same thing, looking all monstery. But still a human, not enough to convince us that he was a monster. And then, you know, throughout the series later on, once it gets past the anime and we go back into the manga, we see his incredible feats of strength, which is nothing too unusual because, you know, S-class heroes are strong. They don't necessarily have to be monsters. But it wasn't really until much later on into the Monster Association War when he gets destroyed by Fura Ugly. He gets his face smashed and then he literally gets ripped in half. One of the most violent sequences in the entire series. And you'd think like, oh, he's clearly dead at that point, but no, he lived. Not only did he live, but he's like, as we can see in this chapter, he's not ripped in half anymore. And it's because he has regeneration. I mean, like, really good regeneration. I think this, outside of his shape-shifting ability, is the hallmark of AMAI Mask's abilities as a monster. And before we break down, like, the monster that AMAI Mask is and what makes him, like, a pretty cool monster, actually, and a very unique one for the series, let's go into his backstory real quick, because this is actually the first time we're getting this in the series. So, coming off of the previous chapter, we saw him talking to Saitama because he realized that Saitama is the one above all in this world, and he's trying to create essentially like Homelander in the One Punch Man world using Saitama. So he's trying to brief him on that, and it eventually gets to the point where like he's not breaking through to Saitama with his plan of becoming like the new #1 mascot hero, because he's essentially just trying to make like a brand, like a mascot. As where we know Saitama doesn't care about that stuff, he just wants to be a hero as a hobby. You know, come and go, do what he needs to do, save people, but not make like a job out of it. Which, you know, AMAI Mask figures like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe that is the true quality of being a hero. So then afterwards, he takes Saitama to like this amusement park, and they're in this Ferris wheel, or gondola, as it is said in this chapter. And AMAI Mask explains his backstory to Saitama. He says he always had an inferiority complex with his ugly appearance. And to compensate for it, he thought that he should at least be beautiful on the inside and lived his life adhering to strict moral principles. So around 3 years ago, when the Hero Association first started, he had joined because it was really easy to get in at that point, and he worked his way from C class to B class, being a masked hero. He actually looks pretty impressive for like a C class hero, so it makes more sense that he eventually became B. Even though that doesn't really have anything to do with it, but you know what I mean. Anyway, he wound up becoming Secret Mask, and he actually had somewhat of a little cult following too. And of course, being Secret Mask, he kept his identity a secret because he was hideous at this point in time, and he didn't want anyone to see what he looks like, until one day he fought a monster that broke his mask, and everyone got to see his face, but to his surprise, he wasn't ugly anymore. He looked like AMAI Mask. And he says it was at that moment that I finally understood what was happening to my body, a body that had strengthened many-fold through unnatural means, and an appearance that had conveniently transformed because I cursed my ugliness. I had become a monster. And that's where the chapter ends. So yeah, the huge reveal right there. AMAI Mask is a freaking monster, and not only that, but he started off as like an ugly guy. But his resentment eventually transformed him into a idol hero. We don't typically see things like this in the One Punch Man world with the monster mutation. Usually it'll just keep going and doubling down and make you even uglier, right? Because we saw that with Fura Ugly. He was known as an Ugmon, a human that was ugly and used that hatred that they had developed from being ridiculed and all that resent that they have, and that monsterized them and made them even uglier and even more powerful. But with AMAI mask, on the other hand, he went in a different direction and became handsome. Now, of course, there's no clear exact science to how this stuff works. We don't even really know where it comes from or how it works at all, other than negative emotions can cause a cellular reaction that make you a freaking monster. But it's possible that because AMAI mask still had this altruistic aspect to him. You know, he wanted to compensate, as he says, at least be beautiful on the inside. Maybe it's this conflict of emotions that allowed him to keep his humanity, but still gain the benefits of being a monster. You know, super strength, the ability to transform and whatever. So he's kind of like in this purgatory. He's still a monster for sure, but he's still maybe possibly somewhat a human. It could be mirroring Garo. But this is, of course, why he tells Saitama why he himself cannot be this big, you know, Homelander, Sentry, #1 hero to be the mascot for the world. It's because he's a freaking monster, and he knows it. He's going to reveal more in the next chapter about what's going on with him, so I don't want to spoil it here, but I'll just say that, yeah, he's a monster, and it's not just like he can live this lie forever and just be AMAI mask. It's like he just can't do that. He's kind of at a time limit right now with things, if anything. And to end this off, let's just go into what makes AMAI mask pretty cool as a monster. And it's that his transformation ability. Yes, we've seen other monsters can like shapeshift and transform and stuff, but the AMAI mask, it's a little different, I guess. And I just think it's like a really cool dynamic. You know, like a hero that looks like a human, but then they transform into a monster and become stronger. Or at least that's the implication. Right, I mean, we've seen that dynamic quite a few times in other series, but I just think it would be really cool in One Punch Man. Especially with how, you know, there's been a line drawn in the sand between human and monsters. You know, you can't work together. But maybe we're going to see a little bit of that change possibly. Also, as we talked about, crazy regeneration. He's able to come back from being ripped in half. It's not like all monsters can do that. Yes, it is typical for monsters to have some sort of regeneration in this series, but the greater the regeneration becomes, the more of a specialization it becomes. So yeah, that's what like makes AMAI mask, you know, special and individualized, I guess, in his way. He's like a monster that can shapeshift, super regeneration, and super strength. So if you want to look at him as like an S-class hero, which, you know, I've always looked at him as you should, even though he's not. But yeah, that would be like his abilities. So let me know what you think about all of this AMAI mask stuff in the comments, guys. Pretty crazy. And again, we're going to be going way more into this stuff in the next chapter because he's going to be explaining the rest of his backstory and what's going on with him. And then we're going to get into more crazy stuff. So let me know in the comments what you think, even if you already know what's going to happen. And if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. But first, guys, let's talk about GamerSupps Premium Energy Cans. That's right, GamerSupps now comes in a can. It comes with all the awesome energy and nootropics that GamerSupps normally does, except now the flavor is enhanced because they're adding a little bit of sugar to this stuff. And it tastes incredible. I was able to try it at Anime Expo this year. It's probably the best energy drink I have ever tasted. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sponsored by GamerSupps. They legitimately tried to make this taste really good because the zero sugar energy drink market is so oversaturated that they decided to add sugar to this to make it, you know, stand out, and it worked. So guys, starting tomorrow, 7-Eleven at 3 p.m. Eastern, these things are dropping officially. You can get a case of them or you can get like 3 cans, I think. Check the link in the description and make sure you use code BIGZ for 10% off. Thanks, guys.